Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports. Joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's show, we've got an NWSL recap for everybody. But before we get into everything, a quick reminder to watch all of our episodes and exclusive interviews on YouTube. Please subscribe to our page to get notified whenever we go live at youtube.com/attackingthird. If you're joining us live, thanks everyone for voting for us in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. And thanks to all of you, we have advanced into the final round. So if you voted for us before, please check your email because about a third of you will be getting an email asking you to vote for us in the final round. So you got to hit up your spam files and folders and look for an email with a subject that's titled Podcast Awards Final Slate Voting. And there you will be able to vote for Attacking Third to win Best Female Hosted Podcast. So thank you all so much. Sunday, late night. Appreciate being with you. How you doing tonight, Lisa?
Sandra, you sound a little tired, and I respect that because it
There
is
was
Sunday
double soccer
night.
today.
Double soccer today. It was very spread out. We had matches Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, closing out this weekend. I'll bring some energy into this episode.
Yeah.
It's late for us. We're going live around 10:30 on Sunday night, but I love it because the game just ended between Chicago and Angel City, and I know Chicago Red Stars gets you fired up. You're actually in your Red Stars shirt. I think I can see that.
You know what? I
No.
guess it could qualify as that. It's actually a bullshit, but
Oh, it's a bullshit. Chicago. I saw like the red and the blue, half seeing it.
yeah,
I'm good. Happy to jump on here with you, spend some time with the family this weekend. So that's always
right
good.
on.
But we're back to talking soccer. So, I am here for it, and there's a lot to talk about.
Listen, I need to let the folks know that we are also going to chat a little bit about Women's Cup, give an update on that because that kicked off today. So that was like everything was happening today. It was like Women's Cup, like 2 Women's Cup games. The quarterfinal rounds kicked off today, and then we had the couple of games for NWSL. So let's look. We do this sometimes when we go live. Let's start with the most recent game that's likely freshest in everyone's mind. Let's talk about Angel City versus Chicago Red Stars. This was the final game of the weekend, and Angel City coming out as the winners in this one. A narrow 1-0 victory over the Chicago Red Stars. Lisa, I think we both had Chicago in this one.
I had a draw.
Or you had a draw. Oh,
I
man.
had a draw between
Either
Chicago and
way, we
Angel
were let
City
down today.
coming into this one, and you had Chicago taking the win to close out this weekend. But Angel City, they get on the board first, and they end up running away with this one just at the very start of the second half. But as a Chicago fan, but native, what are your thoughts on this one? How do you think the Red Stars did? It was announced right before the game Mallory Pugh would not be there. She didn't travel with the team to LA for this game, dealing with a bit of knee injury soreness. But overall, the performance from the Red Stars throughout this game, what are you thinking of it? What do you make of it?
Like when the availability report dropped, it was maybe I've become like desensitized to it a little bit for the Chicago Red Stars team because this is a team that's been going out there this year and has been picking up results in light of like losing week to week what is like anywhere from 5 to 6 starters. So you see that availability report and you're just kind of like, oh, it's the same like mass amount of players who are missing, but then you see the addition of Mallory Pugh on it, and you're like, oh, okay, so this is just going to be another one of those types of weekends. So we're talking about a team that's been without Morgan Gautrat for the majority of the year, been without Kalia Watt, Casey Kruger, Sarah Wildmo. As those are players who are out on maternity leave. Tierna Davidson made her exit from this season very, very early on. And every once in a while, there's been an additional starter that's perhaps been listed on that availability report, whether it's been somebody like a Bianca St. George's or an Aaron Wright or even a Rachel Hill. And now we saw this week Mallory Pugh. So, yeah, good to know. Coming out of postgame, it looks like Chris Petroselli gave a little bit more clarity on that, talking about that it's some right knee inflammation that Mel Pugh is dealing with. But it was one of those things, even without that actual clarity or knowledge, you see this team once again head into a match week missing a ton of players that they've already been missing for the most part this year. But you're wondering like, well, this team has been doing well enough to this point to go out there and collect results. And to be frank, I think with this particular match, when you and I were previewing it, that was maybe part of the argument I think that you made for the draw,
Yeah, it
essentially,
was.
and that this is still a very competitive team despite the roster being pretty split between some of the experienced players and a ton of new faces. And then there was an Angel City side where we were unsure if somebody like a Sydney LaRue was going to be available. She's sort of been listed on unavailable reports lately, and how they were going to look and feel coming off of this kind of midweek exhibition game that they had against Tigres Femenil. So you were like, hey, I'm going for a draw here. So honestly, I thought that there was enough here for this Red Stars team to go out there and get a result. It just didn't happen. And sort of looking at kind of the breakdown of things towards the end of the night, you're talking about 13 shots to 9 total shots, 3 on target apiece. And the game winner ends up kind of being a little a type of goal that kind of almost gave the impression where it's just like, I'm not too sure if like even LA was in belief that they were able to get it in the back of the net. But that's all that matters, is that it made its way into the back, whether it looked fluky or felt fluky or not. You've got a 1-0 scoreline and all 3 points for an Angel City side that is in a position right now that needs to go out there and be, picking up these points. And I think if you're on the Chicago side of thing, you're looking at this as maybe, hey, this is one where you just sort of have to put behind you and look ahead. Technically, when you're looking at the standings, it's a game that they could, I guess, afford to drop when you're kind of looking at things like that.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the level of play on the pitch, they're disappointed to not get a result. I was really impressed with Vanessa Di Bernardo once more. Just sort of felt like she was everywhere on this pitch and just kind of did everything except get the goal for this one for the Red Stars. But big points for Angel City.
These are huge points for Angel City in this match. And honestly, as you mentioned, ones that Chicago could afford to lose at this point in the season. 15 games played so far, and they dropped to 6 with 23 points. And Angel City rises with 21 points to 7th place in the standings. But Chicago started the weekend, third or fourth, I believe. Fourth, I think. Just under Houston started the weekend. So really only dropping 2 spots in this match. But when watching this game on network with CBS Sports Network with JP and Lori, we got to hear from Savannah McCaskill at the halftime, which I love hearing from players about, especially when the broadcasters ask good questions like Lori and JP asked tonight, because they asked Savannah how they find the back of the net, what needs to happen. And lo and behold, 2 minutes into the second half, they do exactly that. She was like, we're knocking, we're getting these chances, we're getting opportunities down the right flank. Angel City had a lot of success with what they were able to do tonight down the right side with Lucy. McCaskill played out wider on that right side, which proved to be much better for Angel City. I mean, she's such an integral part of Angel City's attack, and they just kept going at Milazzo and Lubert on this left side for Chicago. So when you look at kind of like the player balance and things like that, there's so much that comes into it, and depth. I mean, we just talked about Mallory Pugh. Sydney LaRue out for this one. A lot of fans saw her at the game in a boot and in crutches. I'm not entirely sure about that.
That's a lot of eyes. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of eyes, and they're all looking. So
there's a lot of eyes in LA, and I personally don't know much, but in a boot and crutches could mean any number of things. Anything from, hey, we don't want you to put any pressure on it tonight. Tomorrow you're going to play in contact training. So like there's a lot of a wide range of what could be happening there with Sydney LaRue. But ultimately, huge 3 points for Angel City that they collect at the end of this weekend that really sets the tone, I think, for the next month of NWSL soccer for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild ride. I think for certain teams, and we'll talk a little bit about, I think, with other teams who have found themselves slipping in the upper half of the table, because that happened a bit. Things shifted a little bit. You look at Chicago and you just see that availability report week in, week out. And then you see mid-game player like Aaron Wright be substituted out of the match. And you just sort of wonder, like, is this going to be something else that this team has to deal with down the road? So it's something that we'll have to pay attention to. But let's keep talking about some of the big winners across this weekend with big scorelines.
Before you jump into this big winners, we're live on YouTube right now. Lucy, happy birthday.
We got a birthday?
Yeah, she jumped in the chat and said it was her birthday today. So we're talking about big winners. Lucy, happy birthday. You're a big winner.
Shout out
into this segment.
Shout out to Lucy. Happy B-Day. Feliz cumpleaños. Thanks for joining us on your birthday. Appreciate that. Big winners and also some big score lines. We gotta talk about North Carolina Courage, and Kansas City Current. Kansas City Current keeping up their streak, keeping that undefeated streak alive with a 4-3 win against North Carolina Courage. There was a lot of good stuff in between this one, Lisa. I mean, you're talking about the opening goal scoring here with this beautiful buildup and link up between Caroline Debinha to Ordonez for Ordonez to ultimately go ahead and break the rookie season record of most goals scored in a rookie season with 8. So it's like you got the good energy and the good vibes going here in this match, but it was like incredibly short lived, and it was a quick turn. You're talking just like 2 to 3 minutes later, you had Kansas City getting the equalizer from Kristen Hamilton. So the opening 20 minutes of this match, pretty much for me watching it, Lisa, set the tone for the entire duration of the match. And I think at one point in my live viewing of it, I tweeted out, I was like, give me that 4-4 draw. I feel it in my bones. And we almost got it. What did we have for the picks in this one?
I had Kansas City in this one. I believe you had North Carolina in this one.
I don't remember. I feel like that's incorrect, but I think I've been high. We've both been high on Kansas City, so I think we both went Kansas City.
We both went Kansas City. Yeah, I mean, this game, as you mentioned, the opening 20 minutes set the tone. Frankly, having Caroline back for North Carolina and the combination play between her and Debinha is just unmatched. And North Carolina, they can score goals. In their last 8 games, they've scored 20 goals. Now, North Carolina Courage has also conceded 20 goals in those last 8 games because they are picking up ties, 3-3 ties, 2-2 ties, and draws, and losing this one 4-3. Like, those are so many goals scored in this one. But I think you said it best. I mean, giving Diana Ordonez a little shout out for sure. She scored in the last 3 games. She's on a streak right now for North Carolina, but it was really such a back and forth battle that North Carolina could have had the upper hand, but after they scored goals, they let it drop. So they go up first. Diana Ordonez gets her 5th goal, 3 straight game, or excuse me, her 8th goal of the season. She scores first, and then Kansas City equalizes with Kristen Hamilton on a corner kick. There was a bicycle kick from Elizabeth Ball during this sequence of play.
It was wild.
And both of those goals, the opening one for North Carolina and the opening one for Kansas City, were poorly defended plays by both sides that the teams then capitalized on. So they almost get canceled out, right? It's equalized 1-1 at this point.
Yeah.
Then Debinha gets a great goal in the 36th minute. Is a breakaway play. Caroline is driving at Kansas City's back line, and Debinha slots in on the right side of her. It's a heads-up play by Caroline to play Debinha right in stride. A great goal. And then right before the half, Lola Bonta responds with an incredible strike of her own. It was a bullet of a shot right outside the box. So now it's 2-2 heading into the halftime. And I was not expecting 4 goals in the first 45 minutes. And then we get more in the second half. 56th minute, North Carolina Courage goes ahead again. Kaylee Kurtz, she gets her 3rd goal of the year, a bit of a glancing header from her. And then Cece Kaiser responds for Kansas City. It's her 5th goal in 7 games. This was a moment when Claire subbed on Lavoisier for Kansas City. She subbed on for Victoria Pickett, and she made a difference in this game because she actually gets the assist on this goal from Cece Kaiser, but it was just a great cross into the box that then becomes a scrum that North Carolina can't clear out of the box, and Kaiser ends up getting on the end of it. And then Lavoisier ends up getting the game-winning goal at the end of this one, a strike from distance, her first NWSL goal. Kansas City is now 10 games undefeated, climbing the standings.
I love it.
This was huge, right? Like,
I love it.
This was a massive game for Kansas City. It's what they needed to get this win. They're now back-to-back wins, and 10 games undefeated. That's amazing for this Kansas City side. And
it's tough. It's tough in this league to even go on a streak that long, but I think it's even tougher to try to crack double digits. I think we saw Chicago at one point have like a 9-game streak and they couldn't make it to 10. And then I think you've got Portland right now at the moment. I believe they're on an 11 game. So it's like it's very, very tough to do. And watching this Kansas City side do it, I just keep coming back almost nearly every performance, and I'm just so impressed with Lola Bonta every single time. And you look at some of the pass maps that come out of these matches in Kansas City looks like their passing network can sometimes be very narrow at times, very kind of direct, but it's working for this team right now. And I don't think at this point in the season that's necessarily something that you're going to change up entirely. But I think what's equally important about that is that you have a player like Labonta who has become very integral to this team, into their midfield, someone who's been able to pull those strings, both disrupt and generate play, create goals right on her own, both by assisting and scoring them. But, hearing her comments out of the postgame saying like, yeah, like amazing, right? We got this big win, big goal score, but we let in 3 goals. Like we want the clean sheet. Like that's not acceptable, defensive behavior, let's just call it. So it gave me a little bit of a chuckle to sort of see that was her response to that, coming out of a game like this, because if you're neutral, you're like, whoa, like 7-goal game, like
you're neutral. You need to be watching North Carolina every single weekend because
they do not have low scoring games. Yeah. But it was cool to just sort of see that, because I think at this point in the season, you're starting to see who's separating themselves in the table. And if you're going to be a playoff contender in this league, like that's absolutely something you're keeping an eye on. It's like, you don't want to get too high on the highs, and you definitely don't want to get too low on the lows. And so to have, yes, you will have the 3 points and you're thrilled about that, but you have, of course, the veteran kind of putting the team in check and saying like, we got work to do still here.
Exactly. So I want to ask you a question, Sandra, as we go through this. We talk so much about preseason standings, mid-season standings. We do our predictions. We do dark horses. We do all these things. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people on Twitter, people in our live chat right now have been saying that Kansas City is a dark horse right now to win. I don't think Kansas City qualifies as a dark horse, because I was expecting them to do this.
No, so we're on record. We said that Kansas City was going to have a top 5 finish, the top 5 season.
What qualifies a dark horse? Because it's not Kansas City. We were expecting.
No, I think the dark horse right now is. No, I think a dark horse right now is like LA, is Orlando. Even you could put them in the mix of that. Someone who's gonna dark horse. You're behind in the race, and you're gonna eventually shock folks and go ahead and
I think everyone's forgetting that Kansas City played spoiler at the end of the 2021 season last year. That's what they did. They went through and they became a wrecking ball, and they took points off teams that could have made the
very fun to watch on the second half last season. And they went on a really good home game streak to kind of close out their 2021 season. So to see them sort of build off of that, and they kind of try to add pieces in their off season. Those same pieces have not, been a part of this incredible run. They've been without Lynn Williams since very early on, coming out of the Challenge Cup. Samantha Mewis has officially been, said that she's on the season-ending injury list. They've been doing that without these kind of 2-star, like USWNT star caliber players on this team, and they're getting these results with the personnel on the pitch. And talking a lot about Lola Bonta, I think for me, she's maybe up there in terms of when I'm looking at the possibility of MVP finalists. I think there's usually comes down to about 5 or so, and I think she's putting together a very strong case to be amongst, maybe perhaps one of the finalists. But there's a ton of players who have been really stepping it up for this current side. I mean, Victoria Pickett has been having an outstanding season. I mean, obviously we were very high on AD French. Put together a really good string of games there where they had a lot of shutouts, and they want to get back to that, like Lola Bonta said. So hopefully, there's a lot here for them to take a look at and work on, like Labonta said, and we'll see if they go ahead and tighten things up, and maybe the next one they go ahead and get the win and the clean sheet. But we do have another big winner to talk about before we head into a break in the episode, and that's OL Reign versus New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC. This one ending in a 4-1 scoreline, and that's what we wanted. I believe we both chose OL Reign in this one, Lisa.
We did both choose OL Reign. Yes.
Yeah. I think,
and we talked about how Gotham's just been struggling.
We hopped on to an episode. We went live with it. We talked about, the recent news in terms of the dismissal of Scott Parkinson, which was a mutual agreement, between both head coach and the franchise. Everything that's been coming out about it has sort of looks like there's no ill will or anything like that. But in the interim, the news at the time when we were talking about this, Lisa, that there was going to be an interim that was named soon, and that info didn't necessarily come out until after we had recorded. But they had named former Jamaican women's national team head coach and Hugh Menzies as interim head coach, and there was a lot of excitement around that as well. And that type of stuff should be celebrated. But I think when we were initially talking about this particular moment for Gotham, that I presented a question to you and I both, and I said, does it matter at this point in the season? Is this a team that we see week in and week out with the soccer that they play on the pitch, a salvageable type of season? And we both said no in this one. And so here we had the preview and we both went, oh, well, Rain.
I would have loved for them to prove me wrong. Now, what, 2 days, 1 day with head coach Menzies or interim head coach stepping in, but they've also got since there. Yeah.
On one hand, it's this is just like a big moment that just happened for this team. So maybe they need some time to get adjusted. But the other side of that is there's not necessarily a lot of time to get adjusted in that sense. So maybe it is about right now just trying to go out there, play some cohesive soccer, build on some good, performances where you can catch them, And I think on the OL Reign side of things, it's a little bit of the opposite. I think you're looking at Laura Harvey and OL, and they are trying to solidify their 11, solidify their game changers who come off on the bench, look at, key scenarios, perhaps lock in a formation. Maybe they're not going to. I don't know. Laura Harvey has a mixed bag of tricks. What are we going to see moving forward? Are we eventually going to see, more consistent dual nines? Who knows? Laura Harvey's a coach, not us. We're just here to watch and see. But 4-1 in this one. You've got Rose Lavelle with a banger. You've got Megan Rapinoe with 2 goals, one of which was absolutely highlight reel worthy, and totally. You have an own goal, and then you've got Taylor Smith with, I think, perhaps a bit of maybe a consolation goal a little bit for Gotham. Again, we're talking about things that we want to see, good things that we want to see happen for Gotham. I would love to continue to see the evolution of Taylor Smith with this Gotham FC side.
Yeah.
But all 3 points for OL Reign. I don't think a lot of folks had, betting interest on Gotham in this one.
No, I mean, and OL Reign, we know that this is a team that can create chances and opportunities. Rose Lavelle being back in the mix, getting the start 90 minutes, who's been dealing with a bit of a knock, and Rapinoe getting the start. There's just so many pieces there, and we've known this, that Laura Harvey's side can create opportunities and chances, and they are so dynamic in that front line, especially with how much depth they have between the front 3 and the attacking midfielders. But against this Gotham side, the defense for Gotham was falling apart. I mean, when you look at the goals that happened and that OL Reign was able to score, I mean, Lavelle gets on the board first for OL Reign in the 15th minute. And this is just a heads up play by Rapinoe and Lavelle. It's a quick throw in. Rapinoe gets it behind Gotham's back line, and Lavelle runs onto it. Gotham can't clear it. And before you know it, Lavelle's in. And the last person you want one-on-one with your goalkeeper is Rose Lavelle, a fresh, healthy Rose Lavelle. And then the penalty kick that came right before the halftime. This was a defensive error by Jean in the back line for Gotham, trying to play with this ball out. And you've got Rapinoe on your back, who's going to give you a shove, going to put pressure and win the ball off of you, and then draws the foul in the box. So Rapinoe not only scores the penalty kick, but she also draws the foul. And then the own goal happening as the 4th goal, truly the insurance goal for OL Reign towards the end of this one. But I mean, I think Taylor Smith is one of the brightest spots for Gotham right now. Such a huge get for this Gotham side from North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm in a complete agreement with you. I think at this point for Gotham, that's what I'm looking at, because we talked about this a little bit in that episode where we talked about the breaking news of Parkinson's no longer being the head coach, and I'll just reiterate it here in that there's the coach is gone. So at this point, you're looking at the players, and the players have sort of, some of them have gone on record as such and sort of alluded to this as well, like that they just sort of have to look within themselves now and try to go out there and perform and compete.
I mean, but like,
So
look within themselves. What have you guys been doing all year?
who knows? Who
I'd like
knows?
I don't know. I think it's got to be more than that. I don't know. I mean, maybe the coaching change will shake things up a little bit. There's
Yeah, I
someone
thought that the break was gonna shake things up
same,
a little bit for them.
someone
I
in the
thought like, okay,
locker
I was like, there's
room.
players who are gone,
Mhm.
the international window is like open. Like maybe this is gonna be the moment where you get a little bit re-energized, and we just kind of didn't really see that. And then you have, I think this match in particular was a good example of teams who are in the upper half of the table, not so much going out there and figuring things out, but just sort of ironing things out and sharpening their knives, so to speak, versus like very low bottom half of the table teams who likely are at this point not so much looking for answers, but just trying to find ways to sort of have somewhat strong individual performances. I think it was a good example of that. Just two completely
Yes.
different teams and different timelines right now.
I think that's a great way to put it. Teams looking for strong, and like if I'm a player on Gotham at this point, I want to go out every single day and be the best that I can be. And if I'm a leader, if I'm one of those players that can actually use my voice and my leadership in the locker room, I'm speaking up now because they've got a negative 18 goal differential, 13 games into this
Yeah.
season. They have got to do something. They've got to get a win, right? You want to at least get another win under your belt, even if you scrap out 1 point here and there on a draw, but have those individual player performances. So at least your contract's not on the line.
Yeah, first win for OL Reign in their last three matches. Fourth straight consecutive loss for Gotham FC, their ninth of the season. And we'll have more to talk about, but there's a couple other matches that we've got to break down, Lisa. So we'll be back to chat the rest of NWSL weekend and recap the Women's Cup after a quick break.
Now streaming. Celebrate South Park's 25th anniversary with performances by Primus, Ween, and Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Can everyone hear me okay?
South Park at Red Rocks, the 25th anniversary concert. Now streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, let's chat about Houston Dash versus Racing Louisville, the sole draw in this weekend. 0-0 between these two teams. Lisa, I think we both went Houston in this one.
Yes, we both went Houston over Racing Louisville. And honestly, first 45 minutes, I was like, yeah, Houston's got this one in the bag. I'm so confident watching this game on Friday night. I was like, yeah, I knew we both picked Houston. And I was like, we got this one done. Nope, it's a draw.
Just back to feeling not great once more. Listen, but I think another one of these seasons, we're seeing some trends maybe in some of these games where we're looking at the level of play amongst certain teams in this one, and you're looking at a Houston Dash side, and it just sort of felt like at any moment like they were going to go ahead and get that breakthrough, but it just didn't happen. And I know we were also sort of looking for like maybe another type of those big games from Ebony Salmon against the former club, right? But the breakthrough just wasn't there in this one.
No, it literally was not there. I was expecting it. 8 shots for Houston in the first half, 3 of them on target. They had 0.73 expected goals in the first half, which means they probably should have had one at that point. But it didn't happen. And I was totally okay and still incredibly confident heading into the halftime at 0-0, knowing that the chances and the opportunities that Houston had. And then at the very end of this first half, Racing Louisville ends up getting a yellow card. Satara Murray, defender for Racing Louisville, she gets 2 yellows and a red. So Racing Louisville plays the last 3 or so minutes of the first half, 10 players on the pitch, which is fine. At that point, it's like, let's hold defensively. Then they've got halftime where they can discuss the tactics, how they're going to shift their formation, players on the pitch, be a little bit more defensive minded while also keeping the ball a lot more. And frankly, they did that. I mean, I'm going to give props to Kim Bjorkegren, head coach for Racing Louisville, because whatever happened in that locker room at halftime for Racing Louisville, it worked because first half, it was all Houston, ball movement, creating chances, finding those open spaces, getting the ball to Salmon, creating chances and putting Racing Louisville under so much pressure defensively. And the second half, Racing Louisville picked it up. With 10 players, they played better in the second 45 than they did in the first 45. At the end of this one, though, the shots were still incredibly imbalanced. 15 shots to Houston, 3 to Racing Louisville, and 10 on target for Houston, none on target for Racing Louisville. But at the end of this game, the tie, I think it was huge for Racing to go down a player and end up getting 3 points at the end of this one. No, I'm sure they would have loved a win, but Houston stays at the top of the standings. Rachel Daly in the stands maybe gave him a little bit of good mojo for this one.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, this was the farewell game, right? For Rachel Daly, but technically not on the pitch for this one, and she's officially heading overseas with the official transfer complete. But I think having a player sent off, I think to a certain extent, Racing Louisville is, somewhat, pleased to have a point. But we've been having, a couple interviews with Racing players, and they're tired of the draws. They want 3 points. They want the win. And I think if you're Houston, I do wonder if you look at this perhaps as like a little bit of an missed opportunity. Did they need to necessarily, did this type of result make or break them in this month, this spectacular month of August that they've been having? No, not necessarily. But they are a team that had the better of play against the lower half table team. Yep. And they also had at one point a player advantage. They were already had a ton of space to work with in this game against Louisville. And then you subtract a player, that's even more. And they just were unable to take advantage of that. So maybe it's a little bit that this also thought had crossed my mind in my live viewing of it. And I believe I tweeted it out, but it's the familiarity aspect for me as well. These are two teams that played each other a few times already previously during the Challenge Cup. That comes into play. We've noticed this season, when there is these multiple matches under your belt against a specific opposition and sort of understanding the ebbs and flows of the other team, that maybe this actually had the makings of a draw on it. And we just sort of decided to look past it.
We didn't want to draw because this was our first game we reviewed. Yeah, we didn't want to draw.
Yeah, we wanted the goals in the win, but it just didn't happen. But honestly, for Houston, this just extends a little bit of a streak for themselves as well. But
not for Houston after this one, and Racing Louisville goes 3 ties in a row.
Oh my gosh.
4 of their last 5 games draws for Racing Louisville. So picking up points here and there, but Houston is just this tie did not hurt them.
Let's talk about another match that maybe had some folks wondering what happened here. It's San Diego Wave FC versus Orlando Pride. This one was a good old-fashioned NWSL After Dark action. Kicked off at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Orlando Pride undefeated in now their last 6 matches. Go into San Diego and defeat the Wave 1-0. Hang on for the lead.
Hang on. I think that's the best way to put it. I mean, back-to-back losses for San Diego, and Orlando picking up points in their last 6 games that they've played. It's Seb Hines, huge for him, coach for Orlando, stepping in and changing this side. So Seb Hines gives interim head coaches a good name. Maybe Gotham's next on this route of getting someone in and changing things up. But for San Diego at the start of this match, Alex Morgan looked ready to go. She looked fired up. Kaylee Reel got the start in place of Abby Dahlkemper, who is back. She sat out last week due to a red card accumulation, but Casey Stoney gave Reel the start along with Germa. And on the other side of it, Orlando Pride, Carrie Abello, incredibly talented, incredibly fun to watch this year. She did not get a lot of looks at the start of the season and not a lot of minutes with this Orlando side. And she's just grown in confidence and in her play. And I would love to watch Abello in training to see what she's doing, because she is fantastic on the pitch in these games. But this goal for Orlando coming from Maggie Doherty Howard in a penalty kick opportunity. It was,
It's an opportunity.
it was a huge opportunity. It was a bad handball by Real in the box. I mean, definitely a handball, but like
Just
a
soccer.
soft,
It happens sometimes.
it was a soft handball. Like that, the cross that came in wasn't that surprising. It was just bad defensive plays. Like as a defender, your hands need to be behind your back, especially when you're defending and you have maybe 2 yards between you and your attacker, knowing that they could chip this ball in and cross it in. And that's exactly what Orlando did. They got the penalty kick. MDH scores it 1. At the end of this game, post game, I believe Kaylin Sheridan picked up a yellow at the end of it. So post game picking up a yellow. But in terms of what Orlando did throughout this one, they could have in terms of San Diego, they probably could have had 1 or 2. Alex Morgan had a shot off the post in the opening 7 minutes. There's a set piece opportunity again off the post for San Diego. Aaron McLeod in goal for Orlando is being big bodied and getting in there.
Yeah, it was ultimately a red, quite frankly. It was I think a little bit surprising for folks, and I think because it was sort of end of game, as teams were kind of clearing out, there was a lot of curiosity around it. Saw something coming out of I think via Twitter, MLS referees sort of giving a little bit of context in that. I guess it was just some inappropriate things that were said to the official, and making some, alluding to certain things like, match fixing and things like that. So that's a big no-no, I think, when we're looking at things like officiating and stuff within the game. There hasn't been any additional statements, I don't believe, from San Diego around it. But disappointing, quite frankly, to say the least.
From
Just
a veteran,
because,
a seasoned veteran.
yeah, and quite frankly, the best goalkeeper in the NWSL right now. Not something that I anticipated seeing from Sheridan sort of in a post game, especially. Quite frankly, San Diego had the better of play in this game. Orlando was just very much a team that was able to take their opportunities. There were certain stretches of momentum where I felt like Orlando was the better team at times in terms of the level of play. But this isn't a match where the Wave were unable to have an opportunity in front of goal. We're talking about out shooting Orlando almost double, 19 to 8.
Yeah.
Shots on goal 6-2. And within that, 3 blocked shots was pretty level there. 22 crosses,
3 off the crossbar or the post.
You had Alex Morgan hit the crossbar twice.
Taylor Korniak as well hit it towards the end of this game, like 87th minute or so. Like they were knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why at the very end of this game, when the final whistle blew, Orlando celebrated like they just won the national championship or the NWSL championship, because
the body language was very clear. They were pumped.
They were pumped and like well deserved, right? San Diego is at the top of the standings for majority of this regular season, and this was a very, very hard battled game for both of these sides, and San Diego had the chances, and they're thanking Aaron McLeod in goal, frankly, for coming up big and being an intimidating factor in there.
Yeah, like I said, 22 crosses, right?
Yeah.
That I saw that they sent it to the box. So I don't think you can look at this game and say that San Diego didn't have their opportunities to, at the very least, get a result in a game like this. So to sort of see it kind of end with a bit of, jawing at officials after the final whistles, I think, takes away from it, because now you're going to have your starting goalkeeper is going to be unavailable for the next match. That
versus Houston, who is number 2 in the standings right now.
That's going to affect your entire team in the week ahead. It's unfortunate scenario, and I think this is the final game that we're talking about. So maybe let's talk about this in sort of a brief look ahead. We're looking at this. We do overall standings month to month. So we're still in August, but even in just this weekend alone, there's been some small shifting in the standings. You've got San Diego, who were in a large stretch of their first half of the season in first place, and they have not had, I think, a good start to their second half of the season. And I'm including their one win in the last 5 games. They've got 3 losses in their last 5 games and 1 win. And that was a narrow 1-0 win against Chicago, where viewing that, there's a similar argument to be made to Chicago, where it's like they had the better of play during stretches and almost looked as if they could have had a result with the player advantage. That's the game where they lost out on Abby Dahlkemper with the Reds. So there's something with San Diego, I think, in this second half of the season. And we talked about the concept of a long, playing out the long grind of a regular season. So sometimes when that comes into play, when you're hitting the second half, sometimes maybe there's a level of predictability that comes into play after you've played a number of games and there's a ton of footage out there at this point for the opposition to take a look at. And, I think when it comes to this game, I'm looking at the sidelines. I think it came down to the coaching, and Seb Hines had a better game plan coming into this match than Casey Stoney.
And so we're looking at San Diego and what they've done their last 5 games, as you just mentioned, 3 losses, 1 draw, 1 win. And next week, San Diego will play Houston, who in their last 5 have 3 wins. So the exact opposite of what San Diego has. San Diego 3 losses, Houston 3 wins. And as you mentioned, it comes down to the sidelines and Seb Hines for Orlando out coaching Casey Stoney in this match between San Diego and Orlando. And when you look at the Houston side, I think Juan Carlos Amaros has done a fantastic job with this Houston side, picking up 3 wins in their last 5 games. So next week is going to be very interesting for San Diego and Houston, especially because these 2 sides are number 2 and 3, Houston at 2, San Diego at 3 in the standings. And at that point, Houston wants a top 3 because, top 6, make the playoffs, top 3, get a bye. You want to be as close to that top as possible. And they're both with 25 points. So next week's a huge game for these 2 sides.
Yeah, we're cutting it close here on the final stretch. Let's close out with the Women's Cup. If you weren't aware, the Women's Cup also kicked off today alongside the Sunday matches for NWSL. We have chatted with a ton of players who are participating in the Women's Cup. Please go check out those interviews that we had. And you could catch all of the duration of the Women's Cup on Paramount Plus, taking place through August the 14th all the way through to the 20th. Expanded format this year. We talked about that a little bit. It went from 4 teams now to 6 teams. And there are multiple rounds of play within this, including the quarterfinal round that took place today, a semifinal round, and a final championship cup round. But there are also matches that are going to determine 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th place as well. So it's an exciting time for the Women's Cup. And there's not just 1, but 2 NWSL teams that are participating in it. It's hosted by Racing Louisville FC. Oil Rain is the other NWSL side that is going to feature in this. But today's matches were the quarterfinal matches, Lisa. And we had AC Milan versus Tokyo Verde Belleza and Tottenham versus Club America.
Yeah, these games were a lot of fun to watch. AC Milan versus Tokyo was the opening match of the weekend, and AC Milan winning 3-1 over Tokyo. They went up 3-0 and then conceded a late goal to Tokyo at the end of it. So AC Milan will advance, and they will play Racing Louisville in Wednesday's semifinal between Tottenham and Club America. Club America up 2-0 at halftime over Tottenham. I was a little bit shocked to see how this game unfolded a little bit. Ultimately, Tottenham does get 1, but Club America wins 2-1. So Club America will advance. They'll play OL Reign on Wednesday as well. So lots of action happening. There's some midweek NWSL. We got the Women's Cup. It's all on Paramount Plus. And if you miss any of this, if you miss these 2 international games between AC Milan and Tokyo and then Tottenham and Club America, they were very good games. But if you missed it, you can go to Attacking Third, youtube.com/Attacking Third. We've got all the highlights for you there, so you can check them out because we want you guys up on everything that's happening in the NWSL, international, and of course in the Women's Cup.
Yeah, I love that these teams have all come through to Louisville to go ahead and compete in these games. I thought the opening game sort of, I'm excited for the duration of this tournament because I think these two games kind of set the tone a little bit for how the remainder of this competition has to go. We're talking about a really big, a 3-1 win from AC Milan over Tokyo, and then the 2-1 win for Club America over Tottenham. I think that's an exciting time here. Talking to some of these players, Rosella Ayan specifically at Tottenham was like, hey, I'm looking forward to watching, Tokyo play and Club America because like she really likes how technical Mexican and Japanese teams are. So there was a lot of excitement from even players who were participating in this. And I think these games really sort of set up for how things are going to be for perhaps a wild finish down the stretch. And we're going to be tuning in as well and keeping everybody up to date on everything, all things Women's Cup. Thanks, everybody. That's all we got for you tonight on Attacking Third. We want to thank everyone who voted for us. And a reminder to please check your email to see if you've been chosen to vote for Attacking Third in the final round. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to your podcast shows. We're also available as video. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Visit youtube.com/Attacking Third. And we will be back with more. For Sandra, Herrera, and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.